Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today I am joined by returning guest Jordan Janz, owner of Cornerstone Computer Solutions. Jordan works closely with orthodontic practices at every stage, from brand new startups to established offices, helping them build reliable, secure, and scalable technology systems. In this episode, we're talking about what new practices should know about technology before opening their doors, and why proactive IT support can be the difference between smooth growth and costly downtime. So let's take a look. This episode was brought to you by Gray Finch. Hey docs, if your new patient follow-up depends on someone remembering, it's leaking revenue. Gray Finch automates new patient follow-up, texts and emails go out automatically, and your treatment coordinator just checks their tasks list to see what needs a quick call or a more personalized message. That is one of the many reasons I recommend everyone take a look at Gray Finch. It isn't just a follow-up tool, it's a complete practice management software built to help you grow and scale. Stop leaking revenue and get $500 off your startup fee with the Jill Allen special at grayfinch.com/Jill Allen. Jordan, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, so good to see you, Jill. Happy to be back.
Yes. So in the event that somebody did not catch our last podcast together, would you mind just giving us a quick overview of who you are, what you do, and how you help out our practices?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jordan Janz, and I co-own Cornerstone Computer Solutions with my business partner, Dana is her name. So we are a dental-specific IT company, and we work with practices on construction projects as well as established practices for managed IT services. Basically, our goal is to handle the IT and provide fewer tech headaches to our doctors. So my team, we basically live in orthodontic and other dental offices, new ones, growing ones, multi-location, and we're trying to make sure technology doesn't get in the way of patient care or production.
I love that. And I love it that you guys are all over the United States helping doctors out and their practices. And it's such a big thing, especially with my startup doctors. We all know everybody is going to need IT help when we're working on computers now. Gone are the days where we're working with paper and all of that. But I think that when we're making these technology decisions, it's so nice to know that we've got good people that understand our industry and can really help make those decisions that can sometimes feel, I think, difficult as you're looking at that, especially as a startup practice. And that's where I want to kind of focus today with you, because I feel like there's just so many questions. I know I field a lot of those when I'm working with my startup doctors. And I would love it if you would talk a little bit about what you're seeing now. And I know both of us have been in the industry for a while now. Some of those big technology decisions that doctors and their practices need to be making in order to make sure that things are set up right early on so that there aren't problems later.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's where someone like you brings a tremendous value, because from the IT side of things, for our doctors, there's so many decisions that come into play. And on the technology side of things, obviously, I can be a little bit more siloed in the IT, the technology, the digital workflow. But at the same time, our clients are making decisions on logos and websites and what paint scheme they like and what flooring and all of those details. In my experience, doctors can spend months choosing things like carts, cabinetries, chairs, and the computer network, if we're not careful, falls into that everything else bucket at the end. Whereas in reality, that's critical to the scheduling, the imaging, the digital workflow at a practice. Again, what you do a tremendous job of, what our goal is to help doctors avoid expenses, stressful mistakes, to plan ahead for a variety of things. In my world, that looks like the technology foundation that supports their needs, their future growth. We can talk, as you mentioned, the startup phase. There are some key, I would say, phases within that whole build out process that are really important to think about from a technology perspective. From my experience, I think the easiest way to think about a new office project, if we're talking about the startup world, would be breaking it down into 4 phases. In our world, that looks like number 1, pre-construction, where we build the IT plan. Number 2 is the construction phase, the build out. Phase 3 would be installation and launch. And then on our end, phase 4 would be that post installation support. So if it would be helpful, kind of dialing in a few details of those phases, that pre-construction phase, building the IT plan is really important, because that's where we actually develop a detailed IT plan and budget based on the practice's needs. And that has to be completely tailored to each doctor, to each location, to each environment. There's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all, that it really needs to be an intentional design, like everything else in the practice. That allows us to coordinate with architects, contractors, dental equipment reps to integrate the IT infrastructure seamlessly as we go along. And then from there, we take that plan moving into phase 2, the construction phase. And there's a few key points in that, being the chalk walk, where we mark the critical infrastructure, the box walk, where we finalize equipment placement before construction progresses. In that phase, what our role is really laying the foundation. So installing low voltage cabling for data, voice, video systems, security systems, trimming to make sure that the connections are properly terminated and prepared for testing. All of that, circling around to your question, and what I think you do a tremendous job of, is helping doctors avoid waiting too long to engage someone on the IT side of things. At a high level for your listeners, I think the one takeaway here would be the ideal time to engage a company like Cornerstone is when you have a preliminary space plan, or sometimes architects call it a test fit. That's where you likely have a signed lease, or at least an LOI, and there's some sort of a back of a napkin sketch of, hey, here's, based on square footage, based on layout, here's how many chairs, here's what the overall flow could look like. But well before construction documents. So that test fit is still in that planning phase, still working with architect, with dental equipment, with IT on the finer points there. And then, as a refresher for someone unfamiliar with the process, that test fit then is turned over to an architect. Then they create what's called construction documents, or CDs, you'll hear sometimes. That's what is actually submitted for permitting. That's what contractors are using to bid. So it's very important on the IT side of things. Anything that we need is reflected in those construction documents. Everybody talks about the dreaded change orders during a build out, and how we eliminate that on the IT side of things specifically is making sure that we have those conversations during that space planning, during that test fit phase. So we can go to the architect, to the contractor, if there's already one on board, and say, hey, here's where we have power, data. If we're going to have, silly example would be TVs in the ceiling for patient entertainment. We want to make sure that the construction documents, in what would be the reflected ceiling plan and the power plan, it's called, show where exactly we need power outlets, where we need backing so we can mount that TV into the ceiling. All of those, what seem like little details, we want to make sure that's included. So when we get to those on-site construction meetings and we're in that last check, we are all confirming information that we've already discussed, rather than, I never want to be the IT guy that shows up at a box walk, a construction meeting, and starts calling out things that nobody's ever heard of before, saying, hey, we're going to put TVs here, speakers here, and resulting in change orders. That's I think the importance of early planning. And then to close the loop on the IT side of things, that phase 3 installation and launch, that's where we're handling the network hardware installation. Firewalls, Wi-Fi, computers, phone systems, security cameras, speakers, all that fun stuff. And then our technicians are on hand that first day of patients to make sure everything kicks off smoothly. We've all done enough of these to know that initial construction schedule leaves a little bit of margin at the end for important things like training and final testing. And we've done enough of these to know that sometimes that timeline shrinks a little bit because the doctors have all of a sudden their lease payments are due. They need to be open and starting to see patients. We never want to be a phone call away when they actually go live. And then something we can touch on later, that fourth phase is on the IT side of things, what we would call managed services or long-term IT support. And that's ongoing maintenance, proactive monitoring, support to prevent downtime once the practice is up and running.
Yeah. I love this. And for any of my clients listening or anybody who's heard me talk before, this is such an important phase. And to your point, Jordan, that gets missed all the time. We're thinking about all of these things. And the last thing, most people don't even know what low voltage is.
Sure.
But the last thing we're thinking about is this small set of plans that lays in with all of these other plans that are going on, but is so critical. And usually where I'm saying is we need to have this dealt with, I say it just a little bit differently, but before it gets to MEPs, mechanical engineering, plumbing, before we're getting to those engineers, because if we don't have this planned out, to your point, as you were just saying, Jordan, we don't think that where our televisions make a big deal. Like we think IT and we think computers, but as you said, it's sound. It's where is your television going to be in your consult room? And is that plugin going to be up high or down low? If you haven't thought about where the television is going to be, it could be really odd to have this really beautiful television and this weird wiring that's going all the way down to the floor because somebody just thought, oh, yeah, we'll just throw a plug in over here or whatnot. We didn't think ahead about these things. Or security, even when we're thinking about where are we going to put security, where are we going to put sound, all of that really falls into an IT perspective, at least to talk about and think about. Whether you're going to wire something in or not, you still want to have those discussions. And that's why I think it's so important that we're having those before we're getting into mechanical engineering, getting those plans ready, our construction documents ready. So I think that's great. You guys do a good job as well with managing that. And to your point, I think it is such an easy thing to overlook. There's nothing worse than, I've had docs that haven't worked with me, but hearing stories of they're getting started with construction and nobody's even thought about who's going to run low voltage, or like they didn't even think about those components because it's not always even on the contractor's radar or other people's radar unless we're actually thinking about it.
Yep.
So I want to talk a little bit. I know we think a lot about when we say IT, we think just computers, and we both have just said so much more than computers, but I also think it ties into software. And I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about what that looks like now, because in the past, and I'll say 10 years, and we've been doing this a while, 10 years ago or so, we still had a pretty significant setup with our orthodontic software that was done on servers. Mm-hmm. And especially in the last 10 years, we've seen this change where almost every new doctor that's opening up a practice is opening up a practice with a software that is cloud-based, or somewhere it could be still application cloud-based, but still cloud-based. We're not running a server in the practice anymore. And I'm wondering if you can talk just a little bit about what should doctors be thinking about and understand about how that could affect our network, how it could affect security, scalability, just all of that I think is really impacting our practices now that we weren't necessarily, or we were thinking about it differently 10 plus years ago.
Sure. And I would say one of the most common questions I get now is, hey, if everything is cloud-based and there are really good Wi-Fi options out there, why do we need cabling? Is security really all that important if I'm in the cloud? So some really good questions there. I would say regarding cloud-based, starting there, cloud refers to where the data lives, not how reliably you get to it. So even in a 100% cloud office, your internet still has to move through the network first. And I would say if that foundation is shaky, cloud systems feel slow, unreliable, glitchy. Ironically, even the best wireless systems actually still rely on Ethernet or low voltage behind the scenes to work. So wireless access points, for example, they are wired back to the switch for connectivity with a hardwired Ethernet connection. I would say in 2026, most offices don't have a speed problem. I would say they have more of a consistency problem if they're noticing things like glitchiness, shaky, slow connections. And that's because Wi-Fi can be fast 1 minute, frustrating the next, because it's affected by walls, by equipment, by interference, by other traffic on the network. So that can translate into meaningful things like charting delays, imaging hiccups, staff waiting on screens to load, backups at the front desk. So why our recommendation is still Wi-Fi as, gosh, I would say Wi-Fi as a convenience and Ethernet or hardwired as insurance. Because Wi-Fi, think of it as like a shared highway in the air. Everybody's using it at the same time, from computers to tablets to the patient streaming content in the waiting room or loading something to TikTok. And Ethernet is a dedicated private road that's set aside just for practice data. It's faster, it's more consistent. Nothing else is fighting for that bandwidth. Wi-Fi is fantastic. Every modern orthodontic office needs to have great Wi-Fi, both practice Wi-Fi and segmented guest Wi-Fi for HIPAA compliance. But Ethernet or hardwiring is still the foundation that makes everything stable, secure, predictable. And honestly, in a cloud-based environment, that's even more important to have that stable, fast, reliable connection, because all of a sudden, without a server back in the IT closet, all of those computers, all of those devices being used for patient care all day, every day, they are online communicating with offsite servers to pull all of that information. So we need to make sure that's done in a way that is reliable, fast, and not causing downtime.
Yeah, I so agree with you. And this is something I have conversations with all the time with my doctors, because it comes up with me too. Why wouldn't I just run everything? Why do I need to pay the extra money to have low voltage or this, that, or the other? And I'm like, oh no, we need it. We do not want to run an office just off of the wireless network. To that point, also, even though you're the expert in this, I am always advising docs, we need that. We need that those Ethernet cabling. We need that low voltage plugged in where our computers have a better direct line to to that internet speed than fighting with whatever is wirelessly going on there. And I will just say this too, to any of my docs or any docs that are listening, when, especially nowadays with almost all of our systems running wirelessly, this is not the time to cheap out on the lowest internet plan either. I don't think we need T1 lines. I don't think we need these crazy dedicated lines anymore. But I do think, and Jordan, you correct me or chime in and say I'm right here, but I do think that we need to be paying for good internet plans that have the best speed that we can get, because to Jordan's point, there is so much data moving around in everything. We're running voice over IP phone systems. We've got our computers communicating up into the cloud with our operating systems, along with whatever patients may be logging onto our Wi-Fi. If we've got a full office full of patients, I tend to see that clients who struggle with connectivity, a lot of times it has to do with they started out by not choosing a plan that would support the speed. I say, think about a whole office of streaming teenagers. You need strong internet service.
Definitely, definitely. And that's a really good side point to touch on, because there are so many options now. And docs have probably heard of coax and fiber and shared or best effort internet and dedicated internet. There's so many terms out there being used. And honestly, as the industry changes really quickly, there's so many different dedicated fiber, shared fiber options, that having that conversation at the beginning is important. A lot of the feedback that I get just on a anecdotal note on internet phone systems. A lot of the frustrations with internet phone systems, even some cloud-based systems, have more to do with connectivity than the systems themselves. And yeah, if you think of, Joe, like you said, 10, 15 years ago, there was a server in the IT closet down the hallway. And even if the internet went out, you were still able to pull up the schedule. You're still able to take images. You're still able to function. That server infrastructure still exists in the cloud. It's just in a data center that's being replicated, probably out of state from where your practice is. And how you're connecting to that physical infrastructure is through your internet connection now. It's important to have that reliable. One thing that sometimes we don't think about is the importance of both upload and download speed of the internet. If I'm at my house, obviously streaming, the download is a lot more important than uploading. But in a cloud-based orthodontic office, what you're doing all day, every day is both downloading and uploading, because you're communicating with that offsite server infrastructure that's being hosted for you. And that traffic is two ways. So it's important to have reliable download speeds, reliable upload speeds as well. And then depending on the location of the practice, that's one of the things that we do for all startups is a telecom viability assessment or a telecom expense audit. Basically, we take a look, we have tools that we can plug in an address, say, hey, show me all of the internet providers that are in the area, show all the speeds that they offer. If there are any associated construction costs, mostly comes into play when we're doing a ground up project rather than tenant improvement. Are there any costs associated with bringing that service in? And then from there, we can build a redundancy plan. If that's an affordable fiber option, that's tremendous. Some of our cloud-based orthodontic offices that fiber is either cost prohibitive or just not available at this time will have maybe multiple coax or shared internet connections. That's something like Comcast may be the primary, but we bring in an inexpensive secondary. So if Comcast connection goes down, we're not dead in the water. We can fail over to a secondary connection. So to your point, Jill, very important to think about internet as the throughput and one of the lifelines of the practice and critical to uptime. A conversation that should be had pretty early in the process to make sure that we have that plan, because I'll tell you from dealing with this every day, these big internet companies, they move at the speed that they move at. And there's not much that we can do to prod them sooner. So if they say it'll take 90 days, it'll probably take 90 days. So it's a good thing to get on top of early and make sure that we're making decisions for overall, for staff workflow, for patient education and entertainment that fit into that.
Yeah, that's great. And so true. I always tell my doctors, the hardest thing you're going to do in a startup is working on your own patients, like your physical, because it's like the twilight zone half the time. You think everybody would be like, woohoo, I want to hurry up and get going on this project to help you move your project along. And that's never the case. Somebody else's timeline is definitely not ours, for sure. So I want to switch gears a little bit now. And let's talk about existing practices, because I know we've got a lot of listeners that already have established practices. And let's just talk about, what does IT look like now when we're thinking, again, especially if we're a practice that maybe was established more than 10 years ago, or maybe a practice is now thinking, I'm switching from that server-based system into a cloud-based system. And I want to talk a little bit about what it means. What does downtime do to a practice? And just what should we be thinking about if we're a more established practice, and just where we're at right now in society with the expectations of what we need?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I would answer that by saying downtime can be a little bit more nuanced than what we think of. Obviously, downtime in the form of, hey, I can't log into anything, I can't view my schedule, I can't take images, that would certainly qualify. But I would argue it's also those partial failures, systems running slow, imaging not loading, charting freezing, the phone's acting weird, like we were talking about. Maybe to put it in a real world example, I would say imagine you walk into your practice, busy morning, full schedule, assistants are ready and patients are in the waiting room. Then the practice management software lags, or imaging takes longer to load, or you get error messages that are popping up on the computers. Even if nothing fully crashes, that certainly has an effect on production, and stress goes up. Assistants are waiting, the front desk is apologizing to patients, maybe even you as the doctor are jumping in to troubleshoot. I would classify that as a form of downtime as well, because I think some doctors just add up the lost chair time when they think of downtime. But Julie, that's a really good question. What's the true cost? I think that's even higher when you factor in things like staff standing around, patients waiting longer, our doctors being pulled out of the clinical flow to try to help put out these little fires. You want to be careful on the IT side of things to say that it's not a realistic goal to have technology working 100% of the time without any hiccups. But I would say it is a realistic goal to detect issues earlier, have faster responses to those issues, and do a better job of preventing small issues from becoming big ones. And I would say at Cornerstone, that's how we think of proactive versus reactive IT support. Our goal at Cornerstone is honestly to make the technology side of things as boring as possible, as predictable, stable, invisibly working in the background as possible, without those cliche Monday morning I can't log into anything moments.
Yeah, I think that's a great points.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Are you thinking about opening an orthodontic practice? I know, it's a big decision, but saving 25% on the ADEC equipment you need to get started, that's an easy one. Because ADEC has a special program called Smart Start, designed to help you launch your first practice. You get up to 25% off your ADEC orthodontic equipment and furniture. You also get complimentary services to help you run and grow your business. And my favorite part, access to the Smart Start pricing for 2 whole years after you open your doors. That gives you flexibility to add more chairs as your cash flow grows. It's pretty smart. As an orthodontist, you care about getting all the little details right, and ADEC really got it right with this program. So if starting off with a big savings on ADEC equipment sounds good to you, the ADEC Smart Start is definitely worth a closer look. Just follow the link in the show notes to learn more. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
And you brought up proactive and reactive in regard to IT support. And I want to pick that apart a little bit and dive into that. And I think that this is an interesting perspective and a good one to talk about from doctors that are in a startup phase and doctors that are more in that established practice phase. And I would love to get your opinion on, what does that look like? How do you guys view that as an IT company, what that proactive support actually looks like in a practice versus that reactive component? And I think of it as, are we going to have our IT on retainer that if something comes up, we know that they're there? Or are we going to have them I just had a major problem, and now I'm like looking through the list of what IT companies are around and who do I call to fix whatever it is that just happened. The other part, though, that this is where, Jordan, it may be feel like a pinch or be like, Jill, why are you asking me this question, especially on a podcast? But I'm always working with my startup docs on this balance of budget and what can we actually afford in a startup practice versus once our practice is a year or two in and we've got patients and we're really using everything more than one day a week type of a thing. So I know that's a double question there and going to lead us in two different paths, but I'm wondering if you can talk to those points a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. With regard to the first point, I would answer that by saying at a high level, proactive IT support would be about two things. That would be fixing problems faster and decreasing the amount of problems that turn into emergencies. So both reactive IT support, think kind of old school break fix, time and materials, and proactive IT support, or what you may hear called managed services, they still involve calling your IT provider when something breaks and having them open a ticket and address the issue. That's why every managed service platform, ours included, still includes tech support, because no matter how much you do preventatively, proactively, IT is just not set it and forget it. The technology environments in an orthodontic practice are always changing, whether it's dental hardware, software realities, either Mac or PC updates, firmware updates, security patches. Things will break and you'll need an IT professional to help get it fixed. I think the difference in approaches between reactive and proactive is what you hinted at, Jill. What do you do between the service tickets? Do you fix the immediate issue and hope it doesn't happen again? Or do you have a system in place to proactively identify issues before they become emergencies? And honestly, in some cases, even fix those problems before the staff even notices. So there has been a shift, and goodness, it's changing quickly. And AI, honestly, has a huge impact on it as well. At Cornerstone, specifically speaking for us, we use enterprise level software tools that monitor the systems that we support real time 24/7. So that includes software updates, patches, fixes. To peel back the curtain a little bit, we set things up to monitor three different buckets. We call them performance, stability, and security. So if a computer or a device ever strays outside of the guidelines that we set, within those three buckets, we have 11 what we call applied standards. If a computer ever falls outside of those 11 applied standards, we actually proactively have a service ticket created in our system. We're alerted to it. So we're not waiting for the practice to notice a problem and call it in. One that we had very recently, we have worked with this client for 7-8 years. They still have a few legacy computers in there. At the front desk, there's a check-in and a check-out computer. They sit right next to each other. One of them works great. One of them, they call us, hey, this thing is slow. In the old school break fix time and materials world, that would have been a remote technician or an on-site technician, maybe doing some cleanup, maybe asking some questions, maybe looking at what may be saved locally. Hey, did they click on something that's sitting in the background? But a lot of it is that break fix. We'll do what we can on this visit. Here's our number. Give us a call. This specific client is on our managed service platform. So we actually went through and we saw that the memory, the RAM, the random access memory, which is what allows a computer to multitask, 60% of the time that computer was up and running, it was using 80% or more of the memory. So that tells us that computer is redlining a little bit of when that thing is turned on and being used day to day, it's using the vast majority of its multitasking power. So the fix there was a replacement RAM stick, and it's working great now. You asked a really good question on kind of the budgeting side of it as well. And flip side of the coin, right? With so many of these softwares using AI, there's just been such explosive growth in the tools that companies like Cornerstone can utilize to be more proactive, to be more preventative in our care. Obviously, we have to balance that. I'm a business owner myself. You're a business owner, that we need to look at those things. I would say standard of care in the medical world in general and the orthodontic market specifically, it's, to be blunt, it's not good enough to have a time and materials. Hey, let's put out fires as they come up and then hope that it'll be smooth sailing until we have to call someone again. With cybersecurity realities, with HIPAA compliance, it's just not good enough. So I would say there are a few key components that need to be included. One easy example of that, because cybersecurity and that whole antivirus, anti-ransomware world, it rightfully so, is so top of mind, would be antivirus strategy. So the old school traditional antivirus approach is very reactive. It involves installing maybe a legacy antivirus software on a computer that's looking for known bad behavior. Think of that. That software has said, hey, this software, this program, this behavior is bad. Try to stop it after something suspicious happens. And it operates with the assumption of software is safe until proven dangerous. So new unknown threats can slip through a lot easier. The industry has changed dramatically over the last few years and even months. And at Cornerstone, we, along with virtually all top-notch managed service providers out there now, use something called zero trust. It's a term for the model. There's a few good zero trust options out there. That's just what the approach is called. But with a zero trust approach to antivirus and network security, think of it that nothing is trusted by default. Only approved applications are allowed to run. Everything else is blocked unless we explicitly give it permission. So software only gets access to what they actually need. And it's much more effective in stopping viruses like ransomware before they execute, because it offers better protection against phishing attachments. That's still the biggest issue that we see is phishing attachments. So it greatly reduces the risk from human error. Maybe a goofy analogy, but think of old school reactive antivirus as like a security guard trying to recognize criminals as they walk in somewhere. Zero trust is a locked door. It only opens for people that have the key or who are on the list. So whether it's antivirus software, whether it's monitoring software, those are the non-negotiables. As far as long-term support, we at Cornerstone do that. We offer a full menu of plans, anywhere from, hey, we're going to install this kind of core level of software to protect the network and to protect you. After that, if and when you need on-site or remote support from us, then there's multiple options to handle that, whether it is a fixed monthly rate based on the size of the network, the size of the practice. To your point, Jill, it may be advantageous for some startups to say, hey, I really need to watch this. All of my hardware is covered by warranties, so I'm good there. We have the managed service software suite installed here. We have antivirus. We've got the firewall protections. We've got you guys doing all of the software updates. Rather than locking into a fixed monthly plan that includes unlimited support, I would rather pay you your hourly rate for remote calls, for on-site calls, and then we can reevaluate after year one. I think that's a totally reasonable, responsible way to think about it. What I would never cut would be that software backbone foundation of the 24/7 monitoring, of the zero trust antivirus strategy, things like that.
Yeah, I love that. And what I really appreciate about what you just said there, and for any docs that are listening, is it's taking, I'm going to use the word hybrid, and that's probably not the right word, but it's, again, this old school way that monitoring used to be done and taking a fresh approach. And also, I appreciate you, Jordan, that your company does this. And I know there are others that do too, but I just want to say I appreciate that there's that recognition too of, if you're a brand new startup practice and everything is under warranty and budget is so important, that if there's this hybrid step into, it's just like you're going to need a good handbook. You're going to need these best practices in place, but they really become really important. The bigger you get, the bigger of a threat you've got coming at you. And I don't want to minimize the fact that you couldn't have a data breach as a brand new startup practice. But I think especially year 2 and on, these are those unsexy sides of business that we have to think about as business owners and say, okay, I've got to protect my business. I've got to protect my patients' data. I've got to make sure that as I get more employees coming on, that even if I'm not directly monitoring is being done as far as what sites they're out on when I'm not monitoring. Just all of those things that become threats to our practices, that first employee, you're like, they're my forever employee. They're great. They'd never do anything wrong. And they might not. That you could have 10 employees past that, and they could all be on Facebook and Instagram and who knows where else on your office computer. So I really like that approach, and I don't want anyone to hear that I'm not advocating that we need support, but I do appreciate that we can bring it on as needed, or ramp it up, I should say, as you guys grow in your practices. Jordan, I know you and I could continue to talk for another 4 episodes, because I get really excited about all of this, because I think this is just so important in the backbone of our practices. But if I've got a doc that's listening and they're like, I'm just not sure. Maybe I started over a year ago now, or maybe I've been practicing for a while, or I'm a startup doc, but especially ones who are in practice. And if they're just starting to think, I don't know, maybe my current IT situation is not right, or I'm not maybe getting the support, or I don't have any support, and I just need maybe an evaluation and a tune-up. What do you think people should be paying attention to if there might be problems with their systems, or things that might be some little underlying red flags that are starting to pop up? And when should they be thinking about, maybe I need to contact somebody to just get a second set of eyes on my system?
Yeah, I feel like we could do one of those Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck things. Like, if your team regularly says it's being slow today, you might have an IT problem. If you, as the doctor or the IT person,
I love that. Keep going.
You might have an IT problem. At a high level, I would say that slowness isn't normal. Freezing isn't normal. Rebooting daily isn't normal. The good news is IT companies can be so dramatic because it changes so quickly. Our world, the hardware, the software, it's never this set it and forget it. Everything is working perfectly. It's this Rubik's Cube that is continually being solved. And the good news, I would say, is most practices don't have bad networks. If someone's using scare tactics, you can make anything look like a bad network because it all changes so quickly. But I would say most networks that we evaluate, they're not bad. They're just running on systems that maybe haven't been revisited in a while. Technologies, it just evolves quickly, and what was secure and sufficient a few years ago probably isn't today. So one of the things we do at Cornerstone a lot is help doctors when they acquire a practice. So maybe an example there would be helpful. We helped an orthodontist in Colorado who took over a practice at the end of 2025. And obviously very different than a startup scenario because he inherited a network. So in a situation like that, we were brought in to evaluate the existing network, come up with think of it as a technology treatment plan. At Cornerstone, we use a red, yellow, green model where red is anything that is a HIPAA violation or a big risk that needs to be addressed immediately. Yellow kind of being those things that should probably be addressed within the next year or so, and green being things that don't really need to be touched in the near future. So in this example for this orthodontist in Colorado, there were a couple of items in the red bucket. One of them that comes to mind is the firewall. The firewall he had was well out of support. It was not receiving any updates. So that was a day one.
No.
Hey, we got to put this in here.
Yeah.
Other than that, the yellow bucket was mostly software updates. It was a Windows network. So we needed to upgrade from Windows 10 to 11 before Windows 10 ended support last October. And then we were able to look in that green bucket at more some longer term objectives that he wanted to tackle once cash flow allowed. So those were things like overhead TVs for patient entertainment. He wanted a security camera system, coming up with a plan to proactively replace some of the older clinical computers. So I think for your listeners to maybe put some meat on the bone a little bit, I think a very simple way for your listeners to self-assess would be, do I have a clear idea of where my practice is at IT wise? Just where am I at security wise? Even how old is my equipment? And do I have a plan to either save up and replace things in one shot, or kind of a phased approach that I can cash flow? If you have answers to that and you trust the person giving you answers to those questions, you're in a great spot. If not, I would say the first step is not switching IT providers. It's just getting clarity. And the way to do that would be a simple assessment, probably starting with your existing IT provider, if you have one, to highlight anything that's vulnerable, give you a clear picture for how to proactively manage things moving forward. And if it makes sense, maybe have a couple of opinions there to have a sense. Again, I think that the takeaway goal is walking away from that situation saying, I have a clear idea of where my practice is at IT wise. That would be the goal.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Jordan, if somebody wants to connect with you, they want to find more about Cornerstone, and just maybe they're in any of the different various stages that a doctor could be in, what's going to be the best way that they can reach out and get that either I might need some help, or yeah, it's time, or I'm doing a startup and I need an IT plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jill, I know you're really good at this because somehow you always manage to make IT sound somewhat exciting. It's great. But honestly, at the end of the day,
it is exciting.
Technology in an orthodontic practice should be pretty boring. It should be stable and secure and working in the background, so you're not really focusing on it. But like I said, if someone listening is wondering where they stand, first step isn't changing vendors. It's getting clarity on where you're at now, maybe getting a proposal for how to best manage things moving forward. So yeah, at Cornerstone, this is what we specialize in. So we understand the specific systems and hardware and software unique to this space. So if anybody wants to connect, one of the ways is through our website, which is cstonesolutions.net. There's a contact us tab in the top right corner, and you can fill that out. Otherwise, your listeners are always more than welcome to contact me directly. Like I said, I'm one of the two owners of the business, along with my business partner, Dana. My email address is my first name, Jordan, Jordan, at cstonesolutions.net. And my direct number is 303-241-9758. So we're always happy to do a free assessment, whether it's that startup planning, floor plan conversation that we had talked about, or review of an existing network. Even if somebody just wants a second opinion before signing off on a build out or monthly service plan with another vendor, we're happy to help. Our industry is small enough and full of wonderful people like yourself and Jordan and your entire team that honestly, the more that we at Cornerstone can do to help and be a resource and hopefully provide some education along the way, we know that'll come around to us.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And I do appreciate that. You and your team treat my clients wonderfully, the ones that are using you. And it is nice to also know that there are just good, solid people out there that are going to tell you the right information and not oversell, which I really appreciate. Cool. So as we finish up, you know how I like to do this. I like to finish us up with a little quick speed round. Are you ready for the speed round?
Oh, I remember this. Yes.
All right, here we go. What is your go-to strategy for getting unstuck when you're facing a tough problem?
Gosh, honestly, using AI tools now is really helpful. I think it's easy to over rely, but for someone who was forced to exist professionally before AI became maybe an easier answer, that is the tool, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT, or again, if it's written word or even imaging and thinking about something more marketing related, the tools available to us now to take some raw information and refine and do that in real time is really helpful.
Yeah, I love that answer. That's great. All right. This is a fun one. If you could add one unconventional perk to a workplace, what would you add?
Ooh, all right. I recently got into the sauna world. I invested in an
Oh,
infrared sauna sitting in the garage. I love that. If we could see all of you, your clients listening, us small business owners, that insurance review call that we have every year of, hey, for your team, it'll be a lot more expensive to keep things the same, or it'll be a little bit more expensive to have way worse coverage. Like that's pretty much the insurance call that we have at the end of every year. But how nice would it be to do just like the top of the line? I think of the Office episode where I think Michael is trying to choose the health insurance plan for the office, and he wants the one with the massages. And I want everybody to
yeah.
have access to these infrared saunas, detox, feel great.
Yes. Yes, I love that. I would do that in my unconventional space as well. I had somebody else say that and then a pickleball court. I'm like, yep, I'm on for that
Greg?
too. This is
Yeah.
going to be a great workspace. All right. Last question. What is one piece of advice you wish you had followed earlier in your career?
Ooh, man, that took a turn. That's a really good, deep question. I think, again, not to get too deep here, I feel like I'm sitting in the couch sharing my feelings a little bit, but I think operating with a little bit more of an abundance mindset than scarcity mindset, whether it's market conditions, whether it's competition, whether it's the ebbs and flows. You see those social media memes sometimes of the mental life of an entrepreneur or a small business owner like all of us are, that you have these high highs and low lows. You can pretty quickly go from thinking, oh, I've got everything pretty dialed in, to, hey, if this all goes downhill, what else could I do? But I think just operating with that abundance mindset of, I guess, preaching to myself a little bit of, hey, it's a small industry that if we do the right things, treat people the right way, do our work to the best of our ability, then everything's gonna turn out great. My business partner Dana, she's wonderful. One of the things that she always says is, hey, Cornerstone, we are not a perfect company, far from it. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. Our technicians, our scheduling team, we make mistakes. We screw up. And while we are trying to minimize that and always work towards this goal of being as quote unquote perfect as we can be at our work, we'll never get there. I think one of the things that we hold ourselves accountable to are, hey, when we make a mistake, we are pretty darn near perfect at making it right. And I think if
Yeah,
we bring that approach
love that.
to our relationships and the people that we serve, we can be confident that we'll always have a spot in this industry helping people.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great note to end on, and I completely agree with you on that. And yeah, that was good. Jordan, thank you so much for being on Hey Docs again. And I love your enthusiasm in this industry and just really helping doctors out, because this really isn't when you think, oh, I'm going to open a practice and I'm going to think about low voltage wiring. Those two thoughts generally don't go together, and extended help with IT, but yet it's such an important part of what we do day in and day out, and doing it the right way, keeping our patients' data safe, keeping our practices data safe really is, at the end of the day, is key to keeping our businesses safe.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we at Cornerstone are huge fans of you and your team and the work that you do. We appreciate you.
Yep. All right. Till next time.
All right. Bye.